Disclaimer: this story is based on true events shared anonymously. Names and details have been changed to protect the privacy of those involved. Viewer discretion is advised. He was just my foster son, until one moment changed everything. I never thought I'd be telling this story. I never imagined a day would come when I'd sit in my quiet bedroom, heart pounding, trying to put into words how a boy who came into my life by chance ended up shaking the very foundation of my marriage. It all started 4 years ago. My husband, Daniel, and I had been married for nearly a decade. We weren't perfect, what couple is? But we were solid. We had built a stable home, both working full-time, with dreams of adopting someday. We couldn't have children of our own, so we decided to become foster parents instead. We wanted to give love, provide safety, and hopefully make a small difference in someone's life. Then came Leo. He was 16 when we first met him. Quiet, guarded, with eyes that looked far older than his years. The caseworker told us he'd been moved around a lot, and honestly, I didn't expect him to warm up to us. But something about Leo pulled at me. Maybe it was the way he avoided eye contact, or how he kept his backpack close like it was the only thing he could trust. Over time, though, something shifted. He started helping out around the house without being asked. He'd sit with me in the kitchen while I cooked, sometimes just in silence, sometimes asking gentle questions about how I met Daniel or what my favorite books were. He even picked up a habit of leaving little notes when he appreciated something. A post-it that simply said, "Thanks for dinner," once made me tear up more than I care to admit. Daniel was supportive, though a bit distant. He always said he was proud of how much I'd bonded with Leo, but there were moments when I sensed something else beneath his smile. Maybe it was jealousy. Maybe it was guilt from spending so much time at work. I didn't push. As the months went by, Leo became less of a foster son and more like family. The lines blurred in small ways at first. He'd joke with me the way my husband used to, or notice if I got a new haircut. Sometimes he'd defend me in arguments with Daniel, which made things tense between the two of them. I kept telling myself it was nothing, that he was just grateful. That he saw me as a mother figure. I needed to believe that. But then came that moment. It was a rainy Friday evening. Daniel had gone on one of his work trips, and Leo and I stayed in. We watched an old movie, something light, nothing romantic. I remember laughing more than usual that night. Maybe I needed the distraction. Maybe he did too. And then, it happened. I don't know how to explain it without sounding like I crossed a line I never meant to cross. But one moment, just one, changed everything. A glance held too long. A hand brushed against mine. Silence. And then a look in his eyes that sent chills down my spine. Not because I was afraid, but because I realized something had shifted. Not just in him, but in me. I pulled away. I stood up. I told him it was late, that he should go to bed. My voice was steady, but inside I was spiraling. What had just happened? What did he mean by that look? Was it just in my head? Was I the one imagining something that wasn't real? Or was this something deeper, something neither of us wanted to admit? When Daniel came home 2 days later, everything felt different. I couldn't meet his eyes. Leo avoided us both. And for the first time in years, I felt like a stranger in my own home. That was only the beginning. Because what came next? I never could have seen coming. And it tore everything apart. But before I tell you what happened after that night, you need to understand what led us there. Why the cracks in our marriage weren't just from a moment, but from a history of silence, neglect, and secrets we both thought would stay buried. And when the truth finally came out, it wasn't just about Leo. It was about betrayal, trust, and a kind of infidelity I didn't even know existed. So stay with me. Because this story, it's only just beginning. I couldn't sleep the night after that moment with Leo. I lay awake for hours, replaying every second in my head. The way he looked at me. The way my body reacted without warning. And most of all, the guilt. I kept telling myself it didn't mean anything. That it was just a strange, emotional misunderstanding. But a small voice inside me wouldn't stop asking, what if it wasn't? Leo was different after that night too. He stopped hanging around the kitchen. He avoided movie nights. When I'd try to talk to him, he'd mumble quick responses and leave the room. I tried to convince myself that maybe he was just being a teenager, moody and distant. But deep down, I knew something had shifted. Something unspoken now sat heavy between us. Daniel, on the other hand, was as oblivious as ever, or at least he acted like it. He was always tired, always distracted. His business trips had gotten more frequent. He said he was chasing new contracts, but I couldn't remember the last time we had a real conversation. He barely noticed that Leo and I had stopped spending time together. Or maybe he did notice and chose not to say anything. There were days I'd catch Daniel on his phone late at night, texting with the screen tilted away from me. Once, I walked into the room and saw him close his laptop faster than I'd ever seen before. I didn't ask questions. I didn't want to hear lies I wasn't ready to confront. But a part of me started wondering, was I the only one feeling torn? One afternoon, while Daniel was away again, Leo came into the kitchen. He looked nervous, fidgeting with his sleeve. He didn't say anything at first. He just stood there, watching me make tea. Then, softly, he said, "I'm sorry about the other night." I froze. My hand trembled slightly, the spoon clinking against the cup louder than it should have. I turned to face him, unsure of what to say. "It's okay," I whispered. "Let's just forget it." But it wasn't that simple. We both knew it. He nodded, but his eyes said something else. He looked hurt. Or maybe confused. Maybe he didn't understand what he was feeling either. He was still just a teenager, after all. And I was supposed to be the adult. The guardian. The one with boundaries. That evening, I found a note on my pillow. A simple piece of lined paper, folded twice. Inside, Leo had written, "I didn't mean to make things weird. I just feel safe around you. Like I matter. That's all." I stared at those words for what felt like forever. Safe. He felt safe with me. And yet, here I was, making everything more complicated than it needed to be. The next few days were quiet. Too quiet. Daniel came back, but his mood was cold. He barely looked at me. No hug. No kiss. Just a nod in the hay. Something wasn't right. I finally worked up the courage to check his phone while he was in the shower, a line I never thought I'd cross. But what I found made my heart drop. There were messages. Not just one or two. Dozens. Some from an unknown number, some saved under random names. They weren't just casual. They were flirty. Intimate. Some even sent pictures. My hands shook as I scrolled, feeling like the ground beneath me had vanished. I sat on the bed, my head spinning. Suddenly, everything felt different. The distance between Daniel and me wasn't just about work or routine. He was hiding things. He was lying. All this time, I'd been blaming myself for the tension in our home. But now I wasn't so sure. And Leo? He wasn't the problem. If anything, he had just been caught in the middle of something much darker. Maybe that's why he clung to me. Maybe he saw what I hadn't been willing to admit, that our family wasn't whole. That my marriage was already falling apart before he even entered it. But what scared me the most was not the lies or the secrets. It was the way I felt when I read Leo's note again that night. Because part of me felt the same way. Like I mattered. Like someone saw me. And that feeling? It terrified me. I kept the messages to myself. I didn't confront Daniel. Not yet. I wasn't ready. My mind was still racing, trying to make sense of everything. There was so much I didn't understand. Who were these women? How long had this been going on? Was it just physical, or was it emotional too? I didn't know what hurt more, the betrayal, or the fact that I hadn't noticed until now. And then there was Leo. His presence in the house had changed completely. He started waking up early, staying out late. Said he was helping a friend study, or going to the library. But I knew better. He was trying to stay away from me. From the awkwardness. From the tension. And maybe, from his own feelings too. One evening, I caught him outside on the porch, smoking. I had never seen him do that before. He looked up, surprised to see me. We didn't speak at first. I just sat beside him, feeling the cool air between us. After a few minutes, he broke the silence. "I don't think he deserves you," he said quietly. I didn't respond. I couldn't. Because deep down, I'd thought the same thing, but hearing it from him made it real. Leo turned to me, his eyes soft but serious. "I know I'm not supposed to say that. But I see the way he talks to you. Like you're invisible." My throat tightened. I wanted to tell him to stop. That it wasn't his place. But he wasn't wrong. And maybe, in that moment, I needed anyone, to say it out loud. At school, Leo had started getting into trouble. I got a call from the principal about a fight. Apparently, some kid had said something crude about foster families, and Leo snapped. They suspended him for 3 days. When I picked him up, he wouldn't speak. Just sat in the car, arms crossed, jaw clenched. I knew it wasn't just about the fight. Everything was building up inside him, and he didn't know how to let it out. He'd been through too much already before he ever came into our lives. The system, the rejection, the constant moving. And now, this home, this safe space, was full of secrets and pain too. That night, I watched Daniel sleep beside me, completely unaware of the storm brewing on both sides. One from the boy we were supposed to protect. The other from the man I thought I could trust. Leo wasn't the villain in this story. And maybe I wasn't either. But someone was. Someone had broken something in all of us. I started to wonder if Daniel knew what was happening right under his nose. Or maybe he didn't care. Maybe he had already checked out of our marriage a long time ago. But I hadn't. Not until now. And the worst part? I didn't know who I was more afraid of hurting, my husband or Leo. Days passed like a slow storm. The silence in the house grew heavier, pressing down on me from every corner. Daniel and I barely spoke. When we did, it was clipped, distant, like two strangers passing in a hallway. Leo stayed in his room more than ever, the walls between us growing thicker by the hour. I felt trapped in a web of secrets I couldn't untangle. One evening, Daniel came home earlier than expected. I was in the kitchen, trying to pretend everything was normal, but the tension was electric. His eyes locked onto mine, cold and unreadable. "We need to talk," he said, voice low but firm. My heart slammed against my ribs. Was this the moment everything exploded? Before I could answer, the front door creaked open behind him. Leo stepped inside, face pale, eyes wild. He was shaking. Something about him was different, like he was carrying a secret too heavy to bear. "We have to leave," he blurted out, voice cracking. "Now." Daniel and I both turned to him, stunned. The room seemed to shrink, the air thick with fear and anger and confusion all at once. Leo looked between us, desperate, like he was trying to decide who was the enemy, who was the ally. For the first time, I saw the fractures in my family not as distant cracks, but as a deep chasm ready to swallow us whole. The lines between foster son, husband, wife, everything, were blurred beyond repair. The moment hung there, suspended. We were all holding our breath, waiting for the other shoe to drop. What happened next would change everything. But I wasn't sure if any of us were ready for the truth that was about to come crashing down. I stared at Leo, my heart pounding so loudly I thought Daniel would hear it too. Leave? Where would you go? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady, but inside I was a whirlwind of confusion and fear. Leo didn't answer right away. Instead, he looked at Daniel, his eyes sharper now, filled with something I hadn't seen before, anger. You don't get it, Leo said, his voice low but fierce. I can't stay here anymore. Not with what's happening. Daniel's face darkened. What exactly are you talking about? His tone was cold, but there was something beneath it, maybe guilt, maybe fear. Leo took a step forward. I know about the messages. I saw them. You think I don't pay attention? I'm not a kid. I know what's going on between you and those women. His words hit like a punch, sharp and unexpected. I blinked, unable to process it all. Leo had been holding back so much more than just feelings. He was carrying secrets about Daniel too, secrets that could shatter everything. Daniel's jaw tightened. You have no right to say that. But the fire in Leo's eyes didn't dim. Suddenly, the fragile balance in the room shattered completely. Leo's phone buzzed on the table, and he picked it up without hesitation. The screen lit up with a message from a number I didn't recognize. He read it, then looked straight at Daniel. This isn't just about me or you, Leo said slowly. It's about all of us. And what I'm about to do will change everything. The tension was suffocating. I realized then this wasn't just a story about a foster son or a cheating husband anymore. It was about truth, about lies buried too deep and the cost of silence. No one knew what would happen next, but I was certain of one thing, nothing would ever be the same again. Leo's phone buzzed again, and without hesitation, he showed us the screen, a series of messages between Daniel and someone named M. The texts weren't just flirtatious anymore, they were planning meetings, late-night secrets, and promises that tore through everything I thought I knew about my marriage. I felt the weight of betrayal crash down on me all at once. Daniel's face was pale, and for the first time, I saw real fear in his eyes. I never meant for you to find out like this, he stammered. But the damage was done. The truth was out. Then Leo's voice softened. There's something else, he said. My heart skipped. What more could there be? He handed me a small envelope. Inside were photos, Daniel and M together, not just in secret messages, but in moments I never expected. And then, the biggest shock, one of the photos was of Leo, standing awkwardly beside them, smiling. But it wasn't a casual picture, it was recent, from a weekend Daniel never told me about. I didn't want to get involved, Leo admitted, eyes downcast. But I found out Daniel asked me to keep quiet, to be part of this secret. I refused. That's why I've been acting distant. The room felt like it was closing in on us all. The man I thought I knew, the boy I tried to protect, they were both tangled in a web I never saw coming. But just when I thought the worst was revealed, Leo looked up with a shaky smile. There's one last thing. He pulled out a small USB drive. This has everything, messages, photos, recordings. I'm done hiding. And with that, everything changed again. The truth wasn't just mine to bear anymore. It was out in the open, and there was no turning back. Holding that USB drive felt like carrying the weight of everything, the lies, the hurt, and the truth finally laid bare. Daniel sat quietly, no words left to explain himself. Leo looked tired, but there was a strength in him now, like he had taken back control of his story. I realized then that this wasn't just about infidelity or broken promises. It was about trust, how fragile it is, how easily it can be shattered, and how hard it is to rebuild. Leo wasn't just a foster son anymore. He had become a mirror showing the cracks in my life I refused to see. We spent the next few days sorting through the mess. Daniel and I talked, really talked, for the first time in months. It was painful, raw, and uncomfortable, but it was necessary. Leo agreed to stay, but with new boundaries and honesty that none of us had before. The experience changed all of us. Leo's past didn't define him anymore. And my marriage? It wasn't perfect, but it was real. We learned that sometimes, family isn't just about blood or roles, it's about facing hard truths together and choosing whether to move forward or walk away. If there's one thing I want you to take from this story, it's this: trust can be broken, but it can also be rebuilt, if you have the courage to face the truth, no matter how painful. And sometimes, the people we least expect are the ones who teach us the most about love, forgiveness, and strength. Thanks for listening. If you've ever faced something like this, or know someone who has, remember, you're not alone. 5.